Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in TradFi, digital assets, technology, and financial planning. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and a new wave of change is reshaping the world of work. With talent dynamics shifting, regulations growing in complexity, employers are turning to HR outsourcing to manage payroll, benefits, and more. In fact, a study from the Society for Human Resource Management revealed nearly 75% of HR professionals feel their department is working beyond capacity. Meanwhile, this partnered approach is gaining momentum as analysts project the HRO market size will grow by nearly $14 billion in the next 3 years. Joining us to examine this trend is Senior Vice President and General Manager of ADP Comprehensive Services, Muhammad Fahmy, Chief Human Resources Officer and Deputy Executive Director for Gibbons Law, Hayley Conklin, and North America Deals Partner for PwC, Townsend. It is great to have all of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. Welcome to MarketSite. Let's go around the horn here quickly. Hayley, we'll start with you. Just give us a brief description of where you fit within the HR ecosystem.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer at Gibbons Law, and we actually outsource with ADP as our payroll, benefits, and most recently onboarding provider.
Right, and Derek, from PwC's perspective.
Sure, absolutely. I'm a partner in our deals practice, and we sit in this HR ecosystem relative to acquisitions or divestitures, and our clients trying to find solutions to their HR issues.
All right, and Muhammad, ADP.
Yeah, ADP, I'm the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Outsourcing, HR Outsourcing for ADP.
All right, and of course, ADP, a Nasdaq 100 listed company. Muhammad, let's kick it off by getting a better understanding of the outsourcing environment. Many small, mid-sized businesses are just starting to learn about it. Provide us some background.
Yeah, so when I explain to people, I would explain it in two separate buckets. Number one is you're partnering with a provider like ADP for our expertise and our ability to help you manage your day-to-day HR tasks, things like payroll, tax filing, HR administration, benefits, compliance, and the list goes on and on. But I would put that in the category of operational efficiency. To me, the second bucket, which is the heart and soul of HR outsourcing, is having immediate access, built-in access to a team of HR professionals and experts with proficiencies in helping you really, achieve business results. So the end result is you end up automating HR tasks and remaining compliant in an ever-evolving regulatory environment, which really frees up the HR department that you mentioned is overburdened to focus on strategic tasks. And the example that I like to give is, say you have two identical companies with zero difference between them, other than one has an HR strategy. They're hiring, they're training, they have programs that are established to support their employees, and they have a very strategic task around business growth. I can confidently say 100 times out of 100, the business with the HR strategy is more successful than the other.
Right, and so what's happening in the workplace today that's making more business interested in outsourcing HR?
That's a good question. I would say the first thing is the talent crunch. There's a growing need for HR expertise in general, and the supply is low. So over the past 4 to 5 years, we've seen HR professionals and payroll practitioners retiring, and they're not being replaced by the incoming workforce generation. So again, there's this growing need. Supply is very low and demand is quite high. And then I would say complexity and compliance. In the United States alone, we have 20,000 tax laws that are changing every single year. You have workers who are now remote, not only within the US, but globally. And that's just a big strain on HR departments. And then I'd say finally is employee experience and satisfaction. In a tight labor market, workers have a lot of options, so the days of simply offering a paycheck are not going to work anymore. So workers have high expectations, not only around fair pay and traditional and non-traditional benefits, but they also want growth opportunities. They want robust technology. They want to be able to pull up their phone and change dependents or access their W-2 for a rent application or a mortgage application. So the needs and demands of workers are growing and growing. So that's what I would say are like the ultimate factors that are really driving organizations' need for HR outsourcing.
And Hayley, you've outsourced some HR functions at Gibbons. What's the rationale behind that, and what have you gained from it?
We have outsourced at Gibbons, and as an organization, we're always trying to become more efficient. Manual processes just take so much time, and they really constrain our resources. And, we want to make sure that we have the time to dedicate to important tasks and key aspects of our culture. And just to provide a little bit of context on Gibbons, we're a law firm that provides exceptional legal service that is both high quality and cost effective. But as an HR team, we're a small team of just 2 people. And I know Muhammad mentioned this earlier with the fact that HR teams are smaller. And from an administration perspective, we're a team of just 6 people for a firm of over 300 employees. And we're able to remain agile and make important and quick decisions because we outsource a lot of our HR payroll benefit platform to ADP.
Right. Well, in fact, the matter is, the HR function, you're supporting the business's goals. Right?
Exactly. Right. 100%.
And Derek, I'm curious to get your perspective, because pre and post M&A can be a really challenging time as you're trying to figure out what those synergies are and where they don't exist. So where do you find value in outsourcing HR structure when you're thinking about it from a pre and post M&A perspective?
Absolutely. And look, in a transaction, there's a few things that are critical every single time. Speed, is certainty, and cost. And HR outsourcing helps clients actually address all of those aspects. Over the last 25 years working on deals, I've done this quite a few times with our clients. When you think about speed, it's really about speed to set up that platform. Make sure that you have that in place, that you can get to it quickly, and that the employees know that it's going to be there. From a certainty perspective, it really goes back to a little bit to what Muhammad was saying around compliance and making sure that when I check for my W-2, it's there, it's accurate, right? That helps the employee experience. And then you have the cost structure. Again, being able to run lean and being able to outsource efficiently, operate your operations is going to be important, right? And those 3 things are certainly what happens.
What about from the human perspective, right? Because you want assurance as an employee, whether you're, at the existing company or the one being acquired. Does outsourcing HR functions allow you to focus more on the human element so that there is some assurance in terms of, what do my stock options look like? Am I still going to have the same benefits? Am I going to retain my seniority and years of service?
Yes.
As I'm coming into the new company?
An example, so best said, I think, here with an example, I would think about it as we're doing a carve out from a large company. This integration, this new business is going to need to be stood up, may not have any HR personnel currently today. They're going to be hiring people quickly. What it can help you do and how it helps both the HR team and the employees, it takes a lot of the burden of the operational work off of the HR team. They can focus on hiring, development, everything from sort of upskilling opportunities for that broader work population. But the employees also get the benefit of the stability, the ability to handle complex issues that employees face every day that the outsourced provider has great knowledge of and can react to very quickly. And then they also get all the benefit from what their HR team is able to do for them, all in a very compressed time frame, which you're often working with in a transaction.
He mentioned upskilling, Muhammad. You had mentioned before that the HR function's not being replaced in corporations. Yeah. So a couple questions here. Is it because outsourcing is just that much more efficient, or is it because HR professionals need to be upskilled? Where's the disconnect there?
Yeah, the biggest disconnect is that they're just simply retiring and not being replaced. But yeah, it's not only upskilling, but the traditional definition of what an HR practitioner does, like Derek mentioned. You asked about the human element, but Derek also mentioned the things that we free up the HR practitioner to do. There hasn't been that level of upskilling in the industry in general. So, when you're working with an outsourcing provider, their HR professionals are very specific to helping elevate the client achieve their goals, and the list goes on and on. Right.
Hayley, can you give us examples of outcomes that you've seen as a result of outsourcing HR functions?
Absolutely. Most recently, we actually just integrated ADP's onboarding platform, which allows us to hire a new person before they even come in through our doors. So previously, we were processing a new hire's information on their first day. This included their Form I-9, W-4, direct deposit, personnel information, and other firm documents. So now all of this is actually completed in ADP's portal, which I know is safe and secure. What this also does by making this process electronic is we're removing any potential user error of us re-entering that information in, and it's also just improving our employee engagement. So now during a new hire's orientation, we're no longer focusing on just pushing paper over to them and having them sign. Our conversations are about what health plan might make the most sense for them and any of their dependents, and figuring out if their doctors are in or out of network, depending on the plan that might make sense. The process was also entirely customizable for us at Gibbons, so we were able to add in our own content and messaging, which helped a new hire understand who we are as a culture and our values before they even came on board. And there's just one note that I just want to highlight, and that's something Muhammad mentioned earlier, and that's around compliance. There are constantly changing laws and regulations. You said 2,000 a year. And by outsourcing, you ensure you constantly remain in compliance to those constantly changing regulations. Just last year, the USCIS has changed their Form I-9, and this was coupled with a lot of uncertainty about when this was going to be done, and then there was a lot of delays. But because of our partnership with ADP, we received real-time monitoring and updates, which just gave us peace of mind and confidence in knowing that we remained in compliance.
It's so interesting when you talk about culture from the employee's perspective. I've noticed the personalization and the customization of seeing, let's call it Nasdaq branded stuff within our benefits documents, when it used to kind of just be the spreadsheet and this is what came from Cigna and this is what you had, the ability to select. It's almost like it's telling a story within the benefits package, which I think it's interesting to see how it's evolved from the employee's perspective. But more specific to the HR role, with your experience, Hayley, how have you seen the role evolve? Is it more data-driven? Has it shifted more to data and compliance versus the human side of it?
I would say it's a combination of everything. So the role really does seem to be expanding. And I know, as Muhammad mentioned earlier, one of the challenges is people are leaving and retiring. And I actually took over for someone who retired after over 40 years working at the firm. So I can tell you that that is definitely happening, but the role has expanded more. You have to be cognizant about the employees because they are first and foremost the most important attribute that you have as an organization. But then you also have to be aware of the data analytics component. DEI is becoming more important in an organization, so we're constantly relying on ADP's data analytics framework and dashboard to use that. So it's a combination of everything. I wouldn't say you can only focus on one or another. One's taking a reign.
Right, and Derek, can you provide us with some examples as well? Yeah, I know
Absolutely.
you noted something like a media outlet gets acquired by private equity as an example.
Exactly. I mean, but one thing I'd like to tie to, because if you think about that example, so if a media outlet is divesting a company, is getting bought by a private equity firm, your employees, who are your top asset, no matter what organization you're in, are going to be experiencing some anxiety. If you think about from an outsourcing perspective, how that allowed Hayley to have more human conversations with those employees, think about how that reduces their anxiety as they come into it and allows them to feel a part of the organization quicker. That enables an organization to get through that transaction or that transition, which is very, very difficult for a lot of people. So, when you're moving some of this operational piece off, you're enabling better conversations. You're actually enabling a transaction in many ways and happening at pace. Again, I can't say that enough. Being a deals person is something that is really beneficial.
Yeah. Muhammad, if you're interested in HR outsourcing, what are the right questions you should be asking?
Yeah, I mean, listen, one of the themes I'm hearing about is the importance of the employee. So the first thing I'd be looking into is verifying that the outsourcer or the provider rather is able to service your employees in a personal, high-touch manner. So, the days of employee self-service simply being a chat bot or FAQs are long gone. The second thing that I would assess is their scalability, their ability to meet you where you are as an organization and grow with you. And not only scale and grow and adapt, but do it and maintain that high-touch personal relationship that we talked about earlier. And then finally, is really assessing their ability to be an extension of your HR leadership team. Hayley was saying things that were music to my ears, and so is Derek, around their relationship with ADP and the importance of that relationship. But I would absolutely assess for whether or not the outsourcer is able to meet us where we're at, whether you're in growth mode, you're going through a merger, an acquisition, a divestiture, you're a lean HR department, the way Hayley was mentioning earlier, the relationship manager should be able to serve as an extension of your leadership team. In fact, at ADP, oftentimes the relationship manager has a physical seat at the table with our clients, to be able to solve problems real time with our clients. So I would definitely assess their capabilities in terms of scalability and employee service, but beyond that, I would really assess their ability to serve as an extension.
It's so interesting. I mean, of course, AI comes up in every conversation that we're having. So, the better data sets we have, the more predictive technologies we have. Hayley and I were talking about customization and personalization. It feels as if, even with all these new technologies at the table, that it really has become more personalized, to your point, not only as an extension to a team that you're a relationship manager of, but for the employees themselves. From my perspective, it just feels like there's so much more available.
Yes.
And I imagine they're using all this data as they're going through the benefits process to see what we really need, where we need to focus, what employees are going to take advantage of the most types of programs. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, we absolutely see the future of outsourcing depending, like data. And I use a simple example about the importance of data insights and serving up those data insights. We had a CHRO recently who was raving about her relationship manager. And all the relationship manager did was simply serve up some basic data around some overtime trends they were noticing in different locations. And for us, overtime data insights is the tip of the iceberg of what data can do. But that CHRO was able to use that to make meaningful business decisions. And the way we think about it is the evolution will be that your HR department is going to go from a cost center to a profit center because of the data insights that they're able to take advantage of.
Right, and Hayley, that's what we were talking about before at the top, where you're supporting business needs at the end of the day, right? And that's what's going to drive revenue to the bottom line. So that's the same question of you. What advice to organizations would you give when considering HR outsourcing?
I think for any chief human resources officer that is looking to align their business objectives by controlling costs, improving operational efficiencies, and maintaining compliance, it's best to look at outsourcing as a strategy, and it's something that worked really well for Gibbons.
Right, and Derek, we'll wrap up with you asking the same question as well, because you also have to think about what industry you're doing deals with. Financial services, as an example, has a whole other set of regulations that need to be followed. So when you're considering HR resourcing, what advice would you give? Because every industry is different.
Every industry is absolutely different. It has their nuances and it plays differently in a transaction for certain. But one thing that's true, I think, across all is make the decision early. When you're going through a transaction, make that decision early. If you're going to move to an outsourcer, you should do that, and you should make that decision early, and then act quickly, right? Having something like that up in the air, the uncertainty it could give to employees, the timeline that it would take to implement, what distractions it could cause, you don't want that. So you want to act quickly, and then that's going to calm the employee base, right? So again, when you think about a transaction, a big part of it all the time is people. You want that employee base to be calm so you can continue to execute against your business.
Right, of course. And wrapping up here, Muhammad, last word in the last minute, what's next when it comes to HR outsourcing?
Yeah, in 1 minute, I would say increased adoption. We only see increased adoption, and that's going to continue to grow because of the things I mentioned earlier, the lack of HR expertise in the industry and the growing need. I would also say, so not only the growing need for expertise, but compliance. The regulatory environment, like I mentioned earlier, is continuing to get more complicated. As workers are not only remote in the US, but globally, the need for global capabilities, global outsourcing is only going to continue to grow. And we mentioned data insights, and I tried to go without saying Gen AI, but you said it.
Can't get away from it.
Yeah, so I mean, I already spoke earlier about the importance of data insights. So ultimately, the future of outsourcing is more and more adoption because of just the growing need in general.
All right, appreciate everyone's insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me from MarketSite. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.